Okay, ready to rock.
Sweet. Sounds good. Okay. So, first of all, I wanted to ask you, how's your warehouse coming along, your new gym setup?
It's good. It's kind of outdoors and indoors because there's no bay door. So when it rains, it just comes and pours right in. All my stuff is getting rusty and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. It's fun. It's rugged. It's a throwback. Reminds me of my old days. But I'm gonna have to get a door on there eventually because this is gonna rust all my stuff.
Yeah, keep the Atlas stones at the front.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm trying to accumulate my own strongman equipment. It's very budget right now. It's like
yeah.
Oh, I got like a barbell with some chains on the end, and then like hook plates up to it. So very bare bones, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, you can start with very minimal things. It's just odd objects. That's why I started out using strongman for my strength camp clients, because I didn't have to buy anything. I was like, oh, back then, 2007, nobody was using tractor tires. I was like, it wasn't any competition for it, so they were just throwing them away. Now everybody wants a tractor tire, but back then, they were just laying around, and people were trying to get rid of them. They would actually have to pay to get rid of them, so they would just give them away. Stuff like that.
You ever like miss that style of training, like what you did when you started?
No, I still do it. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I'm training with my son right now. So he and I yesterday we did log clean and press, and we did. I do a stone load, and he uses a sandbag. It'll be a part of what I do till the day I die. I did a master's show last year, my first old guy show. So after age 40, you get to be a master. And so I think I might do like one master's show a year. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. That's awesome. So like when I say miss it, like when you started, like I think back to that news broadcast when you had a bunch of guys in the field dragging stuff around. Like that's like you're very like that was like your beginning, right?
That's
like
right.
You're not doing that type of stuff as much anymore, right? With like group of men and in fields and stuff like that.
No, but I did do a lot of that stuff in many different ways, right? So I had the Strength Camp Challenge. And so for a few years there, I mean, I've been from one end of the spectrum to the other. Of course, training people out of the back of my van with trash. But then I had a couple gyms. So, we were doing that stuff in the Strength Camp gyms. And then we like brought it worldwide with the Strength Camp Challenge. We had guys coming from all over the world coming to do just that same dumb stuff that I was doing in the park with the guys. Yeah. They flew all the way over here, and I had a sense that was going to happen. I had a feeling that the strongman was going to trend. It was going to catch on very quickly in fitness, and so because it's sensational, it's fun, and it's cool to watch. So when I started getting popular on YouTube, like people were coming from all over the world just to go to my gym. It was weird. And then I started doing exclusive camps, grounding camps. And at grounding camp, we would do stuff like that because there's an element of initiation. There's a primal excitement that is just triggered inside a man when he picks up a stone. It's the weirdest thing. But picking up a stone, even a natural stone, but an Atlas stone, it just lights some fire inside men. And so I know that part of the reason why guys were coming from all over the world to my gym is because they wanted to lift the stones. That was one of the things that people would walk in and say, where are the stones? I want to pick up a stone.
It's hard to find stones, man. Like I live in a pretty big city, and there's like one gym that has them. You have to drive all the way across the city.
Yeah.
I'm too nervous to make them.
Have you ever seen the documentary on I think Rogue made it, but it was basically the history of stone lifting. And it was based off of a book called Stones of Strength. And there's another book on the same topic of the history of stone lifting. Martin Jasantis wrote one. The history of stone lifting. I mean, it's as primal as you can possibly get as a human being or as a man to proving your worth and making yourself valuable to the people around you. And so, they built the pyramids by picking up stones. And so there's a rich history in mostly Scotland, I think Ireland and France, or they call the Basque area, which are most like islands, you know. And so in these regions, the historians went and discovered that there are these historic lifting stones, and they would call them man stones. And so for a boy to be initiated into manhood, which means you get to contribute now, you get to work, you get to be a part of the big boys, you get to work on the ship, you get to do things, you had to graduate from various stones. So you had, you know, the little stone, and then you had the middle stone, and you had the bigger stone. And so you were ranked hierarchy. There's hierarchy. For men, there's always hierarchy, but you were ranked based on your ability to pick up, you know, which stone. And so it's just deeply ingrained in our DNA. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, is there like an ancient culture that you like the best? Like that you follow the closest, or
an ancient culture that I like the best?
Like, I don't know, like some people
Go ahead. Sure.
No, I was just gonna, like, a lot of people resonate with like the Spartans or the Greeks or whatever.
Yeah. I think I've been fascinated by various different peoples through different stages of my life. I mean, for example, my brother was a Native American sun dancer. He was very much involved in Native American spirituality and Native American rituals and culture, and it was huge. So that was fascinating for a while. And then, you know, in my youth, when discovering Eastern philosophy, I was big into Alan Watts and Osho and a lot of like Buddhist and Hindu stuff. So I was fascinated with it then. But today, I'm most fascinated with Western culture and Christendom. It's because it's who we are, whether or not we want to admit it or not, right? There's a lot of guilt today around being Western, particularly being white. And I wanted to know, well, why is that? And so I started digging into the history of, or the various tellings. People will tell it differently, of course, histories of Western civilization. And so I really like, so for example, the artwork that comes out of, you can consider it Western, but it's still a little bit Middle Eastern, like Constantinople, right? Like I started looking into like Orthodox Christianity, and I fell in love with the icons. I even have some icons up there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, like the ancient art that comes out of Constantinople, like that kind of stuff excites me. I like the Middle Ages. I like a lot of the art that comes out of the Middle Age. I like art, so I kind of like connect with art. So these are some of the things that interest me.
Yeah, for sure. Right on. So I wanted to talk about the documentary a little bit, just as we're getting into this. So I guess it's probably been a while since you have seen it last. So just a refresher, there were these different phases that I classified you as, right? We had early Elliott, Yo Elliott, Golden Age Elliott, King Elliott, Shaman Elliott, New Elliott, and the Triple M Elliott. Was there okay, first of all, I'm kind of dying to know, how accurate was this documentary?
What was the last one? I didn't hear it. You broke up.
It was Triple M, so I had it broken down to Monk, MGTOW, and MAGA.
They're not wrong. Yeah, those are all aspects of me, 100%. Yeah. Timelines is, I guess, the way I'm revealed to the people that watch me, but every single one of those is me right now. I'm all of it.
So you feel like you kind of brought it all together right now where you're at?
I don't disengage or I don't have resistance towards any version of myself, because I just look at it and I smile and I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. I would do that. I would do that. I would say that. And even though they may seem diametrically opposed, well, that's kind of my nature.
So you don't have like if you were looking back on it, you wouldn't say that you had like a favorite phase or like an era.
I like who I am right now, because it's not necessarily different versions, but more mature. See, so lessons learned, you know, things that I wouldn't do again. So it's the maturity, it's the wisdom that only comes with time. I mean, wisdom. You could read as many books as you want, but until you walk the mile, you don't really know anything. So the more I progress on my life, the more I like what I'm learning. So wisdom is the key.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like a lot of us onlookers looking into your life, it's very easy for someone like me to kind of categorize, you know, but it's good to hear on the other end, like, yeah, all those things are me. I'm still all those things.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
It's all in there.
Sweet. If you could you just for kicks, if you were to name your current phase, or not, it's not to say that you're going through a phase, but if we were to slide the next section into the documentary, what would you name it?
I love that. That's a great question, because I'm constantly renaming myself anyway, just based on how I am feeling. I don't know if that's always right, but also the way I sense that people are perceiving me. And so today I often refer to myself as old Uncle E. I'm Uncle Elliott. I'm Uncle Elliott. I'm like your old uncle, like your dad's brother, that's showing you all the things that your dad either probably didn't want to tell you or he couldn't tell you. And so you can ask your uncle. And so I kind of take that. Also, given my age compared to the majority of the people that follow me, I wouldn't refer to myself as a father figure, because I don't want to take on that mantle. And I can talk about that why later on. But elder, uncle, yeah,
sure,
that's me.
Yeah, you've graduated from when everybody called you their older brother to uncle.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So if you could look back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? Like back when you started?
I would just assure the young man that everything's going to turn out just fine. You know, because this is not a bad thing, but I was motivated by fear. And people will say that, well, that's horrible, you're motivated by fear. But fear is a big driver. It's a very powerful force. It's very extroverted. It's better to be motivated by fear than by depression or something, right? Something that holds you back. But if I had to console young Elliott one evening when he's kind of mental and worried that he won't be able to put food on the table for his growing family, I would just pat him on the back and be like, "Hey, don't worry, dude. You'll be just fine. You're gonna make enough money."
Yeah. So I know that you said if you didn't have YouTube, you would have found some other way, right? To kind of do the same thing. Would you attribute YouTube as like a very large player in how everything turned out, or do you think you would have been this way either way? Hard to say, I guess.
Yeah, you know, that's why a part of my wisdom has caused me to acknowledge that I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't create YouTube. You know what I'm saying? So for me to have garnered a large following, well, sure, I'm charismatic and fascinating to listen to. I get that. I then those as gifts too. So is my dad. He's charismatic and very fascinating to listen to. You get to listen to him for days. But for it to be disseminated the way it was, I didn't grow up with the internet. I had no idea what I was doing. When I started making YouTube videos, I was just doing it because I wanted to get more people in my gym. So in a way, I mean, it was luck, right? It was a fluke. Just like the people who are coming out with like TikTok now, right? Like in a way, when you get in early, when things are really ramping up, you have a leg up. If I were to start YouTube today, I'm not sure I would be as popular as quickly as I was back in 2012. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of luck.
Yeah. Well, you had the opportunity to kind of pioneer a genre because no one else was doing what you were doing. And now there are lots of people following in your footsteps. So
right. I'm not so special anymore, and that's okay.
Still an OG.
I'll accept that. And I wear that with pride. I'm the old uncle, right? And so I watched young guys doing stuff that I was doing, but 10 times better. And I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. So I know that given my history in life, that I am a spark. I'm always on the cutting edge. And I no longer doubt myself, because I always know that if I'm going in a particular direction, it's only a matter of time before everyone else is right behind me. I used to worry about that. I used to think that maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen it happen dozens of times now. So I realized, like, okay, well, it's almost like a sign of the times, and I just happen to be a little bit early. When the tide comes in, all boats rise. So I never think that I'm the only one or going to remain the only one when it comes to a particular ideology that maybe I'm promoting. It's just a matter of time before everybody comes in behind me.
Mm. I think that's an instinct that some people have. Like some people are just trendsetters. They have an eye for just something before it happens.
Mm-hmm. Just like it was with strongman stuff. Like strongman stuff, like it was not on YouTube at all. But I just sensed, I was like, this is going to take off here pretty soon. I have a bunch of different things like that that I kind of pioneered. Some took, some didn't. Bioenergetics, like I'm that guy. I'm the guy that brought bioenergetics to the world because I knew that the mind-body stuff was going to fit right in with fitness, and it was going to be very, very helpful to a lot of young men. The non-job stuff, like there's
that one up.
Sure, man. Millions of people are out there killing it on the internet right now, but I was one of the first guys that was saying, you know, you can earn a living doing what you love by sharing your passion with people online. That was like in 2011. That was like mind blowing.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of little weird things like that.
So what's your current relationship with YouTube? How do you look at it now different than you used to?
Yeah, I do look at it differently. Probably a little bit more as a consumer than I was back in the day. You got to understand something. Like I was making YouTube videos and I had no intention of becoming a YouTube celebrity because I didn't know it existed, because I didn't consume YouTube content. I just did it because one of my marketing friends said, hey, you should just put these videos up. And I was like, all right, fine. And then I wasn't like a YouTube viewer. As time has gone on, I've become more of a consumer of YouTube content, but the way I use it is essentially the same. You know, more or less, I'm creating more or less content than, you know, other times, but for the most part, it's a tool for me to say my piece and draw people in.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. It's a marketing tool.
Yeah, you have more of a give and take relationship now.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. I had some questions for you from like a coaching perspective, because I'm a personal trainer.
Nice.
That was largely inspired from your content. Man, I went to school to be a phys ed teacher. And then while I was in that system, I kind of realized through your videos that I wanted to be a physical educator, just not in a classroom.
Yeah.
I had that moment. It took me about 3 years to figure it out, rolling around sleepless at night. And then it just clicked. It's like, I want to work with people that want to actually be there. So
isn't that much better?
Yeah. So, okay. Just personal questions. What is your favorite lift to teach somebody?
Oh, I love breaking down the deadlift. I love breaking, because it's all leverage, right? And leverages. And so it's easy to have an eye for leverages, and you just put people in the right position and you get them to maintain their angles. And, you know, you can go from not being able to pick up a barbell to being able to pick it up just based on the angles and leverage.
So how soon do you wait to teach somebody the deadlift? Will you do that day one?
Yeah, absolutely. Picking something up off the ground is like as primal as picking up stones, right? Like we spoke about it before. You got to know how to pick something off the ground in the most effective way possible, depending on what it is that you're picking up. So you're not really exercising if you're not picking something off the floor and putting it back down, right? Yeah. You're not lifting. Maybe you're exercising. There's a bunch of people that are bouncing around on blocks and doing silly stuff like that, but you're not really lifting unless you're picking something off the floor.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know that like some people have a philosophy of, oh, you got to build up the leg strength first. You got to build up, you know, they got to know neutral spine first. You know, they delay the deadlift. So I was just curious what your take was on that.
There's some validity to that. You know, like Paul Chek used to say, you have to isolate before you integrate. And so if somebody has some really bad faulty recruitment patterns, you got to go back and you got to chunk down the movement. And even for the elite lifter, you have to chunk down the movement too. That's why like those West Side guys do like reverse hypers and stuff like that all the time. So those are all valid as well.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of different angles to get to the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's your least favorite lift? The one that you're like, Do you have any lifts that you're like, I should teach this one, but it's hard for them to get? I don't know.
I hate doing biceps. I hate biceps. Did you know that? Isn't that strange? Everybody wants to do biceps and chest. I hate training the biceps, and it shows because I tore both of them. Tore both of my biceps. Maybe if I did more bicep training, I would have torn both of them. And now I really hate doing biceps because one of my biceps is deformed from tearing it. So I'm like, I did a video montage the other day. I had a camera crew here because I'm doing a podcast and they wanted to, have videos.
Yeah.
The intro. And he's like, you got to do some bicep curls. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to do it. It shows off my ugly ass arm. And I never do bicep curls anyway.
I mean, it kind of looks like a battle scar. Like it shows an experience, a time in your life when you were lifting really heavy stuff.
Yeah. It's taken me a while to accept it. For a long time there, I was trying to hide. I was like, damn, this shit is so ugly. I wore a brace on it, but I'm good now. Wisdom, right? That was like, 6 years ago? It was a long time ago, so I'm over it.
What about like hammer curls? Because those are like awesome strength building.
That's my favorite. Yeah, that's my favorite lift for the arms, for flexion. Yeah, hammer curls for sure.
Okay, right on. So when going back to the deadlifts, would you say those are your favorite to do personally?
No, I like the deadlift, but I'd much rather pick up a stone.
Okay.
It's more dynamic, it's more primal. I love odd objects, right? Barbells are great, but I still see them as supplemental. I still have that old strongman mindset. The real lifts are stones, logs, yokes, sleds. You see what I'm saying? That's really lifting. Barbell stuff is just supportive. It helps.
Interesting stuff. Barbells are supplemental. I think that's the first time I've ever heard that. That's usually where people try to end up.
Yeah.
Okay. So while I have you on the call, I'm curious, what is your best piece of advice for building up stone lifting strength? Because lifting a 300-pound barbell and a 300-pound stone are not even close to the same world.
That's right. And so you do the thing to have the power. The way you get better at lifting stones is you got to lift stones. So you're right. So for example, yesterday, I'm conditioning now for another show that I'm going to do in November. And so I'm training in the backyard with my son, doing stone lifts. And I decided to use my 225 stone. I've been using the 200. And picking up a 225-pound barbell is easy. I could bang that out for reps. But I was struggling because, look, I was sweating, so my arms were all wet. The stone slips. My shirt was wet, so the stone is like slipping on my shirt. So like you have to give extra effort because it's a round object and it wants to slip all over the place. So you have to have experience on the object itself to actually get good at it.
Yeah. So it's not like you ever go into thinking, oh, I want to improve my stone lift. I should do this, and this exercise to build up supporting or assisting muscles.
Only supplemental.
Right.
Same thing. So like if you're going from the mindset that you're going to use the glute ham raise to build supplemental strength for your deadlift, well, then take it one step back and say, well, I'm going to use the deadlift as a supplemental lift for my stones.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So when training somebody new, just because I'm like really into the personal training world, and I see that everyone has different philosophies on like getting beginners going. Would you, because I know you like to take a more minimalistic approach, right? Like just kind of the basics, but like, would you say it's more or less valid than someone like hyper personalizing on somebody based on where they are in an assessment? It's like,
that's my background. My background is in hyper assessment, and hyper individualization. I was a Paul Chek student. That's how I got into the industry. And if he says, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. And he's basically against any and everything that is sort of blanket. If they're like group classes are from hell. So everything was, you got to assess, you got to assess, you got to assess, you got to assess. So that's where I come from. But then, which is very conservative, but then like old Uncle E does, I go into the other end of the spectrum and I became very liberal, which means just pick it up. Don't think about it. Who cares? Round your back. Just pick it up. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to the meticulous activation of inhibited muscles and all that kind of stuff. You know?
So why do you think you made that shift? Like what in your brain switched to just pick it up?
Because it's all, here's the thing. It's not about negating one over the other or making one better than the other. It's all valid and important and based on what you're trying to elicit with the person. So just take, for example, I have a new lifter and he comes in and I could spend a lot of time focused on doing a power clean. Let's take something real complex, right? Before you do a power clean, you have to learn how to set. You can't even lift until you set. You got to be able to set on the floor. You got to set mid shins. You got to set standing, right? And then you got to understand how to drag. And so you got to set, you got to drag, and then you got to practice dragging it up your body. And then you got to learn how to rack. You see, so there are like all these technical aspects of a power clean. And it's good. That's fine, especially if you're going to be a technical lifter, like an Olympic lifter. But I have this kid say he's 15 years old and he's going to do his first session with me, right? So I got to give him a good workout. Just think about this as a personal trainer. You got to give him a good workout and something that's fun that he wants to come back and do.
Right.
I can spend 30 minutes on teaching him how to set and how to activate the core and how to have a neutral spine and all those things, which are valid. They're important. They must be done at some point. Or I can say, hey, you see that 100-pound sandbag right there, buddy? Go pick that up and put it on top of that, right? And then they'll look at you like, really? Yeah, just pick it up. Well, what do I do? Bro, just pick it up, put it on your lap, and put it on top of the platform. And that gives someone a sense of empowerment. It gives them a sense of excitement. It gives them a sense of accomplishment, because when you pick up an odd object, it just feels more like you're doing something than when you have a barbell in your hand. So picking up that sandbag and, whoa, maybe you drop it a little bit and it's kind of like a sloppy feel to it. So you got to kind of like get your nervous system working so that you know how to grip it. And then you finally get it. And then you put it on the, that's why guys would come from all over the world, like hundreds, thousands of miles away. They get on airplanes to come to strength camp back in 2014, just so they could pick up a stone. Elliott, I've been dreaming about picking up this stone. I literally had guys email me and say, Elliott, I had a dream last night. You were showing me how to pick up a stone. That's the weirdest thing, because there's something in there that triggers something masculine in a man to pick up a damn stone. So I'll do that. But then depending on the person, I might have, then what I'll do is I'll descend it. So I'll be like, okay, well, you picked up that stone. I can tell your legs are way stronger than your back by the way you picked it up. So then what I would do is after that, bring it down a notch to, okay, let's practice some deadlifts.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess they leave the gym with a new sense of confidence when they figure out how to do it themselves. Yeah, as opposed to feeling like they're underneath somebody who knows everything and they don't know anything.
Right. I learned that as a coach too. Like, I'm excited to teach you how to do it right. But there's some benefit to allowing someone to do it wrong and figuring it out themselves too. Right. Yeah. So I might just, when I was younger, I would be very meticulous and almost too much. I wonder why people didn't fire me, but like all over and just constantly picking and super meticulous. And at a certain point, I realized that if I just let the person do what comes naturally to them, let them pick it up and then just fix a few cues, just give cues are everything. You got to know how to cue. Just give a few cues, maybe one or two cues that they'll remember today. They're not going to have the perfect deadlift, but at least they'll remember to drive their knees over their toes, or maintain a neutral spine, or to maintain a neutral cervical spine, or whatever it is that, you know, that was maybe sucking. Maybe they'll remember to keep their hips down a little bit more before they extend their upper body, just whatever it is. But for that day, I give them one cue. Right. Keep that cue. Cool. Then we just build on it the next.
Yeah. So if they're like shaking around trying to get the movement done, it's just a matter of being patient and being like, yeah, they're getting stronger. Just let them squirm.
Yeah. Or even descend an exercise further. so that they can get strong in like a different angle. So for example, like my daughter, we were doing deadlifts yesterday. My wife was teaching her deadlifts, and she's really strong. She got strong legs, strong back. But her flexibility is a little off when it comes to her conventional deadlift. It's not very good. And so I just told her, just do sumo deadlifts. Just do sumo deadlifts for a little while. You don't have to think about it. You can get stronger, and eventually you'll have enough of a foundation of strength that, okay, we can start bringing your feet in together, and we can start teaching you how to hinge. She's having a hard time hinging. So,
yeah, do you find it a lot more rewarding or fulfilling when you're one-on-one training your kids?
I think one-on-one training is very fulfilling. I think group training is fulfilling too. I think there's a benefit to all of it, to both of it. There's things that you can get in group training that you can't get in one-on-one training, like camaraderie and like the group excitement. That's valid. That's important.
Sure.
If you have a group of people and they're all focused on the same goal and they're encouraging one another, that takes a lot of pressure off of you as a coach, and it adds value to that person's experience.
Yeah, that's true. But like working with, when you're training your kids in the gym, it's a totally different experience than working with some random person.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a different experience because it's your kids, right? So it's different for whatever it's worth.
I don't have kids yet, so I often think about what it's going to be like to teach my son or daughter how to deadlift.
It's not as easy to keep the ego as detached when it's your kids. Because I'm like, you're my son. Come on, you got to be able to figure this out. It was just some random kid. I'm like, oh, this is an awkward, weak kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I'm doing my job. I'm just punching the clock.
Yeah.
But then when it's my kid, I'm like looking at him like 3 hours later, like, what the hell? Why can't you just pick up the barbell, kid? Where did I fail as a father? What did I not feed you right? What happened?
Yeah, so they should just be born knowing that hinge movement for sure.
Right, come on. So it's definitely a lot more pressure for my children rather than someone who's paying me to be there.
You still training with your wife at all?
Yeah, my whole family trains. Yeah, we train together. Sometimes we'll train separately. Yeah, we're homeschooling now, so I'm the PE teacher.
Right. Okay. So what does that all entail, Pete? Like you're leaving the gym and you're getting outside and running around?
It depends. We've done lots of different things. But for the most part, because especially my daughters, they play soccer. So they're getting a lot of conditioning. They're getting a lot of running. They're getting a lot of sunshine. They're getting a lot of sweat. They're doing all that stuff out on the soccer fields. So when I have them, I want to do what they're not doing on the soccer fields, which is building strength.
That makes sense.
A lot of low volume, high intensity power lifts are what I have them focused on.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Are you still doing like one-on-one stuff at the gym?
No, I don't train anyone except my family right now.
Well, that's nice. You can just put all your focus into that.
Yeah. That was the dream from day one. I remember in like 2000, I didn't even move down to Florida yet. I was like 2002. I think my daughter was first born. And my vision at that time was I'm going to get to a point where I'm only training people I love. At the time, I was a personal trainer at a gym. And I was just training a whole bunch of people that I would rather not even be around, some of them. But they were paying the bills. So, but I was like, one day, I'm just going to train people I love being around. And I've done quite a bit of that. Training football players and baseball players and strongman athletes and powerlifters. I loved being around all of them. I loved doing all of that when the season was right. And now, the season is, I get to train my children. They're all teenagers now. And so it's perfect time to get them lifting. And so that's where my heart is.
Right. So maybe eventually, once you're not training people at home, just see where you're at kind of thing.
I might. I have dreams about that too, daydreams. So I would probably want to put together a strongman team that would come and meet me here at the ranch, train with me in the back. And so it would be all guys that are committed to doing a strongman show and probably doing it all together, like back in the day when I used to do it with my training buddies.
Sure.
But one new aspect that I'd want to add to it, and it's like one of these cutting edge things that I can see it becoming popular. It's coming, but we're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is moss wrestling. Do you know what moss wrestling is?
I'm trying to think of it. Is it some, like one of the type of things you do at your grounding camps?
Never did it at grounding camp.
Okay,
and
then I don't know.
Still don't have enough people to do it with me. But I believe it's a Russian sport, and it involves two guys and a board between them. You may have seen these. A board in between them, and they both have their feet on the board. So they're sitting on the floor, feet on the board, and the other guy's facing the feet on the board, and they both grab a stick. They grab the same stick. And so the match begins when the whistle's blown, and you try to pull that stick away from the other guy, pushing with your legs and twisting with your arms and stuff.
Interesting.
And the guy who pulls the stick away from the other one, short stick like that, he's the one that wins.
Okay. It's like a full body arm wrestle.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right on. Yeah, so you could make it a one-on-one spectacle, or you get a bunch of boards and get a whole row of guys going at once.
Yeah. Do you know oh man, I'm gonna forget his name. It's Odd Haugen. Odd Haugen, the old school strong man, pro strong man. He's like in his 70s now, but he's popularized it mostly in the US. And he's an old man. He still competes in it, and he still coaches people in it. So I get a lot of inspiration from him.
Okay, speaking of old men competing, did you feel like there's a point, because I'm 27 right now, and I feel like strongman beats the hell out of my body. So I can't imagine it gets any easier as you get older, or do you get more adapted to it?
You also get smarter. At least I do. Like, I'm a masochist, and so I enjoy destroying myself. But the aftermath is not worth it anymore. When I was younger, I would just suffer, and I'd say, "Suck it up." And my friends were whining and complaining because they were sore and broken. I'd tell them, "Suck it up, stop being a punk." But I'm a punk now, so I don't suck it up. I'm like, there's no reason why I should be this sore. I have other things to do in my life, and this is a disturbance. And so I've learned how to be sore in the ways that I want. So I don't want to be sore from strongman lifts because my bones hurt. The places that hurt are not supposed to hurt. I'd much rather have bodybuilding soreness. And so so what I do now for my bodybuilding is one set to failure. It's almost like a Mike Menser type protocol, heavy duty. I have a friend, Jay Vincent, who was teaching me about it, and I love it. It's just one, maybe two sets. If it's two sets, it's just a warm-up set, but one all-out brutal set to failure. And it's all that's needed. I'm super sore. My muscles are pumped, and I'm growing with one workout a week. So as far as muscle building is concerned, I much rather have that kind of soreness, because it's isolated in the muscle too. It's not like joint pain, because a part of the protocol requires that you do partial ranges of motion, something I've never done before. I'm like, what do you mean partial? But rather than, full up, lock out all the way down, you kind of go like 80%. Like, you stop at 10%, and you stop at 10%. And then you just keep the pressure on the muscle the entire time. The muscle is destroyed, but my joints feel great. And so I like it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And there's also you go slower too with high intensity training. So I'm used to, and listen, this is why when people argue with me about stuff, I'm like, dude, I've been across the spectrum. I know what you're talking about. I've done it all. Right. So that's what I do with my life. I experiment. That's why when people get confused about what Elliott's doing, it's like, I'm experimenting, bro. I'm having fun. Life, there's way too much in life to be locked into a box. I've always said that. And people liked when I said that, when I was in the box that they liked. When I got out of the box, they got it's like, don't you remember I told you?
Yeah.
But with this kind of lifting, it's so different because I'm so used to high force training, Olympic lifts, strongman, which is a lot of bouncing and a lot of jerking and a lot of fast movement. And so that puts a lot of wear and tear on the joints, all those powerful, fast movements. So this way, now I'm discovering that I can build just as much muscle, I'm not sure about the strength just yet, because strength is a skill, and that's why I'm doing more strongman conditioning. But by not doing the high force stuff, but instead high intensity with low force, by going slow, I'm getting great results. I'm really enjoying it. And for where I am in my, my seasons, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I saw your video you did on that. You were able to go pretty hard till failure. So doesn't till failure training, isn't that like, so you say you feel it more in your muscles than like in your joints? Because doesn't it add like a lot of full body fatigue when you go till failure?
Yes. Mike Menser, I think that's who, or Stuart Small, I forget the author of Body by Science, but I think they both use the same term. It's a very simple term. I'm trying to remember. It's like metabolic. It's like metabolic something. It's like you get a metabolic result from weightlifting. It's like you basically get cardio all over. You get full body cardio by putting that much force. But that's why you can only do one set. If you do one set like that, like everything, your heart's racing, blood's pumping, sweat is dripping, and it's like, man, I only did one set, but it's one brutal set.
That's interesting. I wonder if you kind of make up for the volume because you're doing so much one time instead of breaking it into like 3 sets.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens. There's a lot of science behind it. I'm not going to pretend like I can quote it all, but it makes perfect sense, because what you do is you reach the point where you would typically take a rest, but there's also still something left in your muscle. And by avoiding that last, drop set or burnout, you fail to create new inroads. This is how Arthur Jones described it. He's like the founder of this type of training. He called it inroads. And if in order to build strength, you want to build more neuromuscular pathways through the muscle. And so he called them inroads. But if you stop right before your body is about to start creating new inroads into the tissue, well, then it recedes, right? The intensity recedes, and then you do it again, and then you bump up right against that threshold again without passing it. And it's like you just did 4 or 5 sets right up to your threshold, and you're hoping to build muscle in perhaps a less effective way.
Yeah.
Or efficient way. Both ways are effective. It's still effective to build with multiple sets. And there's a lot of benefit to multiple sets. Like, for example, you need motor pattern recognition. You need, you need to keep doing the same movement to get good at it. So like with my kids, I don't do this with them because they need to keep practicing the skill. That strength is a skill. So it's like, I don't care about the weight on the bar, but are you doing it well? And that requires repetition. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I might have to look more into that till failure training, because that sounds kind of awesome, especially when you're like, oh, I got 5 sets of this.
Yeah, the workouts are so much faster. So my son and I did one on Thursday last week, and we were so beat. We were only able to get we did dips. He did push-ups. I did dips, overhead press, inverted rows, and pull-ups. Dips, pull-ups, inverted rows, which are bent over rows, but you're laying back using body weight, and overhead press with the barbell. Four exercises, and I was done.
Yeah,
whooped. Couldn't do another thing.
What kind of rest were you doing between those?
So Menser et al., all the guys that sort of support this training, suggest that you go from one to the next to the next.
Really?
That way you really get that metabolic effect. But I'm not ready for that. So I do the one set to failure, and then I might take 2 to 3 minutes to prepare for the next exercise.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. On the same page as intense strength training, I want to dial it to Monk Elliott when you were fasting and strength training. That must have been so ridiculously hard. I can't imagine, because when I'm strength training, I just want to eat all the time.
Yeah. I was doing everything that I could to strip down to as bare bones as I could get. So I wasn't lifting for strength or muscle.
Okay.
I was listening to burn. I wanted to see if I could become a skeleton. How much of a skeleton? And everybody's like telling me, Elliott, you're going to lose all your muscle. You spent years building that muscle. I was like, yeah, so what? I'll build it back again later. And so it was among many things, it started out with humility, but then ended with huge ego. But it was a means for self-discovery.
Mm. That's really cool that you can look back on your life and like it's not like, I don't know if it's living without regrets, but just looking back and seeing like, yeah, I pushed my body to that brink, and like you've seen yourself, like you said, all over the spectrum.
Yeah.
That's got to be incredibly satisfying.
It is, right? Especially when like sometimes people look back on their life and they say, well, I wish I would have tried this, or I wish I would have done that. And I'm like, oh, what the heck? Let's just try it out. It also has its downsides. I mean, it's fun. It's cool. You know, it's kind of a figment of, or a fruit of having attention deficit disorder. So as fun as it can be to be an experimenter, you never really build a deep well. And so, like, for example, you know, you made the documentary about me, and even the way the thumbnail looks, it's broad. It's not deep. It's wide. There's like Elliott goes into these, he digs these halfway wells. And so you got a bunch of different wells, and you never really go deep with anything or anybody. And so you confuse the audience. That's one of the things that I know that I've done. I'm like, I'm confusing the crap out of my audience because they see me digging all these little wells and never really going deep. So, you know, it's got its pluses and minuses.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool that you're like, I'm going to go in this direction now. And you're able to like pull a business venture out of it and start like, I've always admired that.
It's got to be profitable. This is my job. I am my job.
Yeah.
So if I can't find a way to turn it into an ebook, people call me grifter and all that kinds of shit. I'm like, well, whatever. If I can't find a way to turn it into an ebook or a course or to make it profitable, then I have to ask myself, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to do anything that's not profitable because I am my business.
Yeah, I think my favorite one I did from yours was the warehouse gym course. I think that was probably an older one. That one, I love that one. I was taking notes. And then you had that podcast that you did with Chris about starting your own warehouse business. I think those are my favorite.
That's right. Yeah, I might go back to doing more business stuff again, but we'll see. I love that.
It scratches that entrepreneurial itch because you've kind of pioneered this path. So it's always interesting to see what your take is on that.
And I'm so grateful for all of the young men like yourself that have benefited from those kinds of products. I know guys who now have multiple gyms and they're banking, they're doing great. And they owe it all to the crappy little video course I made with my webcam in 2009. And they're like, yeah, I watched that, Elliott. And now I'm multi-million-dollar gym owner. I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's wicked. Are you still in touch at all with those guys that you had the team with for like your squad training videos? And
no, that's dissolved over time, you know, little by little. You know, people find other things to do, want to do other things. Sometimes some of them are just temporary. And so that's another thing that in my life that has just been a pattern, right? Like people come into my life, all kinds of people come into my life, and then they leave. I don't have any stable relationships except for the one that matters, my wife. And we've been together since we were teenagers. So as long as I got, you know, I can prove that I have the capacity to have long-term relationships. My parents too, they've been together for a long time. My family is great. But yeah, friends and coworkers and people like that just come and go.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of have a similar relationship with my wife. We got together for high school grad.
Nice.
And we started dating. We got married since. So I've only been with this person since high school. So I get what you're talking about. A lot of the time with your wife.
Cool. Yeah, 27. You got married at what age?
22.
Yeah, you and I are the same. Yeah, she was 22, I was 23.
Oh, wow.
You're 27 now. I think we started having children like right away. I think 24 was our first.
Yeah. So when you talk about bioenergetics, I'm interested to know, are you going to implement that stuff with your kids? Because as a parent, you have to deal with all these different, I mean, I'm not speaking as not a parent, but dealing with different emotions and mood swings and stuff like that. Are you going to teach bioenergetics to them to help them go through those emotions?
No. And it's not because it's not a good idea. It's a season pass for me. And so I don't feel qualified to do it the way that I think it needs to be done. And that's why I kind of like left bioenergetics for a while, because when I was really into it, I had a mentor. I had a therapist and a mentor, Dr. Bob Glazier, and I worked with him. He was a student of Alexander Lowen. And so he was straight from the Neo-Reichian school. He was brilliant, brilliant man. And I was discovering a lot about myself and learning a lot about Neo-Reichian therapy, bioenergetics. But then he died. He died like right in the middle of our, doing the things that we're doing. And bioenergetics kind of started dying to me as a result also. And so I still see the great benefit in it. I still think that Alexander Lowen's works are way underrated, and I think everybody should really read, for a firm understanding of oneself, read his books. It's amazing. Language of the Body, Voice of the Body, all these various books. But Neo-Reichian therapies, bioenergetics never really, and it's a shame, but I think again, once again, I was ahead of my time. I think it'll come around eventually, but hasn't really caught on yet. But I think it's on its way. I know I actually have a lot of ex-students and fans that have taken bioenergetics and ran with it. I have a guy who's a legitimate ex-monk. He was a friar. He was a Franciscan friar. And he started watching my videos on bioenergetics. And now he's going all over the world and learning and teaching. And he's trying to integrate it with Christianity.
Interesting.
So that's one of the things that was kind of lacking too with bioenergetics. Bob Glazier said to me one day, he says, be careful with bioenergetics because you're unzipping someone's soul. Oof. And I never took that lightly. I understood what he meant when he said that. And when you unzip someone's soul, you need containment. If there's no containment, you can open the door for all kinds of diabolical stuff, spiritual stuff. When you're literally unzipping someone's unconscious, that's the way he said it, soul unconscious. But you're unzipping and you're exposing their innards. And so I think for here's the thing. The church has always had exorcists. Today, the exorcists there are very few exorcists, but the diabolical delusion is off the charts. And so I don't know if it's a matter of like we're just not honoring this spiritual healing that's required through sacraments and practice, or we're just living in a severely disoriented time. I think it's a little bit of both, actually. So I don't remember where I was going with that, but I do have a friend that's bringing both the containment. Carl Jung speaks about this a lot too. Carl Jung is very spiritual in his approach to psychology. Both Carl Jung and Wilhelm Reich were like on different ends of the spectrum of Freud's uncoverings and student body. Reich was all about the body. He was all about breath. He was all about sex. He was all about bioenergetics. And then Jung was all about spirit and archetypes and, God. And one of the things that I don't think Reich understood, or at least maybe he didn't verbalize it enough, that Jung understood, was that when you start playing with these aspects of a person's character, their soul, you need containment. You need containment. That means there needs to be a safe space, not just in the moment, but there needs to be, so for example, moral codes by which you now go out and operate from, given that you have new energy, new vitality. Robert Moore does a really good job of describing all this in his lectures also too.
That's interesting, kind of how spirituality works its way into there. I mean, it was always there, but you're just not aware of it. Yeah. So do you like, now that we're kind of on the subject of spirituality, so you've kind of fluctuated a little bit in that as well, right? Different ends of the spectrum. Like, would you say that's kind of similar to how you've approached fitness and all these different paths you've taken?
Seeker. Yeah, I'm a seeker. There are things that I'm looking for and I'm trying to understand. I never take anything for face value. I want to know for myself. I want to know. And then I want to convince myself. right? A lot of people are convicted or convinced of various things, but I want to choose. And so what does that mean? Well, I get the opportunity to take advantage of the plethora of options that are available to us in this crazy ass age, right? Like maybe it would have been easier to grow up in an age where all you knew is one thing and then there's no confusion. But that's not our fate. We live in a time when there's all kinds of opinions, all kinds of options, all kinds of roads you can go down. And it's not easy not wanting to check it all out. And so I spent a significant portion of my time as a youth checking out all kinds of different things, especially as it relates to religion, because there's a question that is imprinted on most men's hearts, and mine in a very poignant way, which is, what am I? What am I? What am I doing here? I'm a mixed race man. So when I was a kid, I grew up in New York, suburb of New York, and you had black kids, you had white kids, you had Puerto Ricans and Haitians and Asians, but then I was like not really fitting in. So people always ask me, Elliott, what are you? What are you? And so that question really struck me. It stuck with me until I started studying. Like went to the library, I started looking at philosophy books and quantum physics books as a 12-year-old. And I'm like, these books are telling me who I am. And it turns out I'm not this. There's a spectrum. And so spirit has a lot to do with it. And so it's just a rabbit hole that I have always run down.
Right. So would you say that you're chasing the truth or just your truth?
It's so tough today because there's so many angles, so many people, so many opinions, but I want the objective truth. I don't want my truth, because my truth is you. The reason why I came back to Catholicism is because there's no room for your truth in Catholicism. I've proven myself to be a bad God. That's what it is when we have our own truth. They say we live in an atheistic age, but I don't believe that. I think we live in a pagan age, because to be pagan means to worship the creation, not the creator. And we all worship ourselves. I don't think there's ever been a time where we've been any more narcissistic than we are today. Everything is me, my feelings. What do I think? What do I feel? How do I look? Right? We are our own gods. We are our own idols. And so, of course, so am I, right? And look at me. Here I am. I'm on the YouTube. Everybody loves me. I'm an idol. I'm an idol to people, and I've made myself an idol in my own mind. And so, like most people, I began to worship my feelings. Well, I feel this, or I reject that because of the way I feel about it. And that has only led me down unfruitful roads. And so I've done a 180, right? I let that pendulum swing. And I now feel most grounded in objective truth and the search for objective truth. What is the truth, not a truth or my truth? And the problem is here, and let me clarify it a little bit better. The fullness of truth. That's really what I want. The fullness of truth, because there's truth in everything. Like there's truth in astrology. There's truth in every religion. There's a truth there. All of New Age, there's a truth. The law of attraction, there's truth there. There's no question. But what's the fullness of truth? There's truth in all kinds of philosophies, all different kinds of religions. But which one is universal? Which one encompasses all that's good and true and beautiful and warns against the slippery slopes of the satanic ladders we can fall down, like the self-worshiping stuff?
Yeah. I like that you say that everyone has its own truth, because I think even if you decide not to stick with one, you still pulled a lot of life lessons and values out of it that you may not have ever gotten in one that you committed to your whole life.
But imagine there's one that has the fullness of truth, that acknowledges the truth of all. This is why I was attracted to the Baha'i faith. Right.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's a noble pursuit, and that would be good if we, I don't know, as a species, as a race, or as all humanity could come together on a universal truth. I mean, I hope you find it. You can share it with me.
I'm not so sure. I'm not sure that we're even destined for that.
Yeah.
That will all that's a utopian idea that's promoted by communist thinking people, that we'll all just get along and we'll all be the same. We'll be all one big lukewarm gray mass of consumers' minds. I mean, that's really what the global totalitarian takeover is really all about. It's how many people can we get on board to believe the same commercials and advertisement and CDC guidelines that we pump out worldwide. How do you get people to no longer be diverse? It's funny because the left likes to talk about diversity, but they don't like diversity. They do not like diversity, because if you think outside of the realm of the boundaries set, then you're not allowed. And so the global totalitarianism is about making everybody, what's the word? When you go to a Starbucks, it's a Starbucks. You go to a Target, it's a Target. No matter if it's in China or if it's in New York.
Sure.
I forget the word, but it's generalized. Everything needs to be as industrialized and generalized as possible, including the human unit. So we're more easily manipulated. We're like franchises. Our souls have been franchised.
So what's the difference between, you're saying, a communistic view, utopian view, whatever, the difference between that and you seeking a universal and objective truth that would resonate with everybody, where you draw the line between those things? Well,
one truth that many faiths will acknowledge is that we're not made for this world, that this is just one small part of the spectrum of being a human being, and science has affirmed that. Why would they call what we live in the third dimension? Does that mean that there's other dimensions? Of course, everybody's talking about 3D, right? We're in the third dimension, but what about the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th dimension? How many dimensions are there? So we couldn't be totally tied to just what we're seeing, tasting, smelling, and touching.
I see.
So if we understand that this is just a tiny fraction of our experience as a human being in eternity, then what's happening here isn't nearly as important as we're made to think it is. Social justice shouldn't go before divine justice, right? Social law shouldn't be before moral law, because those are things that are focused on the flesh and material existence, where moral law is above that. It's not just, can I do this, but should I do this? Those questions are that much more important when we pull up out of trying to make this a utopia. We realize that we're transcendent beings.
Yeah, it's on another level. It's not even, okay. I get what you're saying. Okay, well, we've kind of approached the 1 hour mark. I want to be respectful of your time. I will just ask, what's the future for you or for Strength Camp look like? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I got a little bit of an idea. Going deeper. I've done a lot of broad things, and so I want to work more closely with people. I see the benefit that is that unfolds when I mentor people more closely, like you said, that you want to do more one-on-one, right? You want to do one-on-one training. I want to get back to that, but then in a holistic way. And so it's about becoming the strongest version of yourself, man. That hasn't changed. I'm still a strong man, still a strength coach, making men strong again. Because so here's the other thing. I had to ask myself, I'm helping men become the strongest version of themselves. That was one of the things that that's a phrase I coined too. Everybody says that now. Be the best version of yourself. I'm like, I was the first. So I was one of the first guys that said that. But then I had to really sit with, to what end? Okay, so I'm making mostly men. That's who I attract and who I work with. So to what end am I making men strong? Why? So they can do what? So they can lift, or so that they can meet girls, or so that they can make money? Like, but then ultimately, why and what? And what practical creation can a man create that would be truly generative, right? Meaning not just helping myself, supporting the future generations, healing society from our fallenness. And so I am blessed to have come from a healthy, strong, intact family with an alpha male father. And I see the benefits of that in me and in my life. And I see where the failings of others have been a byproduct of not having that. And that's not to say that I'm better than anybody, but I'm blessed. And strong. I came from a real family with actual traditional gender roles between my parents. And it works. I see it works. And it works in my family too. I didn't even have to think about it. It's just the way it unfolded for my wife and I. And so, you know, a lot you say red pill Elliott. That's fine. That's fair, because there needs to be a return to masculine headship, masculine excellence, and the making of men strong for families. Because the only way that we're going to turn things around is if we start raising stronger boys, and boys need fathers. And that's not to say that we don't raise strong daughters. I have 3 daughters. It begins with the men. Men go first. Women will follow a man if he is righteous in his endeavors. But because men have become so weak and effeminate, no wonder why women just pick up the flag and run. Yeah, women are leading us in everything right now. But a part of it is because most of us are addicted to pornography and smoking weed. So it's like, look, we got to toughen up, become men, have a mission, right? If you tell men that their mission is to make money and to sleep around, that's to no end. That's an ignoble mission. But if your mission is to raise a generative family so that your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will know the tradition of masculinity and family, well, now you're talking my language, at least.
Yeah. So you're strength training both your son and your daughters, right? Yeah. So would you not say that that's a more like traditionally a masculine thing? Like you talked about, a man has to prove himself. So yeah, why even bother train your daughters then? I guess
my daughters get involved for a different reason. So a lot of times it's not the thing, but it's the why. And so my daughters play sports not because they want to win. And this is not me making this stuff up or brainwashing my kids. I just listen to them and I watch them and I ask them. I'm like, so what's up? Girls are playing sports because they make friends. Girls are playing sports because they're cooperating and they're having fun, and they're not really competing. They're not really looking to be to have what's the word I used before, but authority. They're not really trying to overcome someone else. Really, they're trying to make friends and have a good time. And so helping them do that comes from teaching them exercise. You're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have the best time out there because you kick the ball around the most, right? So it's slightly different. Where like when I was my daughter's age, I had visions of smashing other men's heads. Like I wore a helmet and I wanted to smash someone's head, right? And I could see it in my head. I could see it in my brain, like the blood bursting out of his skull. My daughters don't think that way, but I'm a psychopath.
What would you say to female like MMA fighters that have that desire, that same desire?
I don't know. I think that a lot of that is trained. I think a lot of that is fostered, or I think a lot of that comes from trauma. I don't know if that comes naturally. I think there are a lot of dads out there that teach their daughters that they need to be tough and that they need to be strong and independent, and that they need to never need no man. And there may be, maybe there's a reason why maybe there's a trauma usually why they did that. But I raised my daughters to be potential wives, and they know that and they love that because they see how great their mother's life is. So so I had this conversation with my second daughter earlier this week, and she's like, well, why not train us to be or create opportunities for us to be professional soccer players? Why I could be a professional soccer player, and there's a whole track to go down to make that happen. And I explained to her, and she's already on the same page, but she just was trying to like understand that if we're here to create a better world, right? And maybe you don't agree with that, but that's my conviction. The conviction is that we're here to make the place a little bit better. What better than creating great families, right? Because you could be a great soccer player and inspire a lot of people and win some games and stuff, but to raise healthy children, happy children, children that understand what a family looks like, and can raise their own families, that's sorely lacking in our world today. There's so few of that. That's a minority. And so I'll never force my children to do anything that they don't want to do. But I propose that, you may actually do more good, and you'll probably be very happy, like your mother and your grandmother, if you decide to be a wife and a mother.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. The world tries to denigrate that. That's the other thing too. It's not that I'm speaking crazy stuff. It's that the world is on the other end of the spectrum. The way I'm thinking is 100 years ago was basically like normal. Like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you raise a family and you do your best to raise healthy children, and you don't break up your family. You don't destroy your family. You have grandkids. Right. And so, but today that sounds like misogyny. That sounds like, wow, you don't believe in equal rights, Elliott. Well, that's not actually true. I actually am pro-family. You can do whatever you want, but I think the best use of your time and your superpower as a woman, men can't make babies. Women represent the future. Is to exercise that.
Right. So you're not discouraging behaviors. You're just reinforcing values.
I have to put the picture for what people can't see. People can't see that marriage and family is a good idea. Oh, what happened there? Am I on? Oh, there I am.
Yeah.
Because most people today do not come from good families. Most people do not see good families on the TV screen. They don't see it in Hollywood. Don't hear about it in the music. There's no example of healthy, rightly ordered families. And so in order for me, this is the way I see it, to exercise the gifts that God has given me and the blessings that he's brought into my life, I got to promote what most people ain't got. You don't know how beautiful family could be. I got to tell you. I got to show you. I got to explain to you. And it's not a sexy sell. This is the other thing too. People like to say to Elliott, oh, Elliott, he's just doing what people are buying right now. They think that. They think every time I change, it's because I'm grifting. He's just trying to sell to incels. Incels are terrible customers, by the way. I'm not trying to sell anything to incel. But the fact is that a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is just not popular. I don't sell a lot of albums singing this song. But I do believe in the vision of a society with healthy families. And so I speak this way.
Right. Okay. So you might be talking about, I mean, masculinity and women and men, but it all kind of comes down to the family. That's where it's all rooting from.
Yeah. I love the family. I love my family. I love the family I came from. I love to see young families like yours. Like, I think that's so cool that you married that makes my heart melt. It really does. When I see young couples that get married, I'm like, do it, bro. Do it. And that excites me.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on.
Make it work. Make it work. There are so many pitfalls to waiting for marriage too. It's better to get married young. And you'll see this as time goes on. You'll realize the place that you're in, that your friends are not, right? There's a lot of waste, particularly for men. Think about how unfair it is, first of all, that they ask us to, well, there's two ends of the spectrum. You get into your sexual stage between the ages of, say, 13, 14, and like your peak is like, early 30s. During those years when you're most fertile, you're most as a woman and most sexually active as a man, you're encouraged to blow it all out in the streets. Just waste it up. Just throw it up all out there. Watch pornography, chase pussy, go and, all this stuff. Rather than, it's just been my experience, taking all of it and consolidating it down, narrowing that power and delivering it to one woman, making lots of babies, and focusing your strength. That's, to me, that's a better use of your 20s than, you know, all of the things that they tell us that we need to do now.
Yeah. And there are different, I think, cultures that embrace that more so than the West.
The more industrialized the culture, the less they believe that. In fact, in the US, the average age for a man is 27 to get married, or 29 for a man to get married, and the average woman is 27. In some European countries, it's more like 32 and 33. And then, you know, the lower you go down the socioeconomic ladder, you know, you get into third world countries, and like they're doing it the way they always done it, which is, hey, you're 14, you're fucking, you're having babies.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked about you have a reason for why you would make your daughter strong, and there's a reason for why you would make your son strong, right? So
plus it's an activity that we get to do as a family.
Right.
And so, as opposed to, you know, someone who's using it more as a tool for athletic ascension, I don't have any pretensions of grandeur for my children in terms. If they do, that's great, that's awesome. You know, that's fine. I'm all for it. But for my family, it's a bonding activity.
Right. So instead of making a man strong because of X reason and a woman strong because of X reason, would it be simpler to just say, just make everybody strong because that benefits everybody? Or do you find that
it benefits everybody to be strong?
Yeah.
A real beautiful woman is a strong woman, physically strong woman. She's a robust woman, a woman that can do stuff. Who wants a who wants a weakling, skinny, fat, weakling girl? That's not a useful woman. I want a woman that could carry the laundry. Right? You should be able to carry the groceries in, babe. My wife loves showing off her strength, right? She's a thin girl. She's a really little girl. She's petite. And when my kids were smaller, she could help me move the couch. If I needed help carrying something up the stairs, she could help me. So strength is for usefulness. If you got a body, you must use it. Now, men and women are different in their capacity for strength. And so for a man to maximize his strength, he'll reach, say, 1,000, and a woman will reach 600. Doesn't mean that we need to be in competition with one another, or trying to, you know, make it such that, you know, one must overcome the other because of our natural gifts. There are gifts that women have that men don't have. And so here's the thing: women want to compete with men, but men don't want to compete with women unless they're a transgender.
Right. Yeah. So I guess my question is, why focus on making men strong again when benefits everybody to just continue to grow stronger? You know what I mean? You
know, first of all, it's because that's all I've done. I don't know any better. It's who's here. I was the oldest of 4 boys. I had high school football, and all of my football friends were all male. They used to come to my house. I started lifting with them. Always played football. Started being as a personal trainer, and all my clients were men. I wasn't trying to make that happen. It's just who God puts in my life. Started making YouTube videos. I never ever classified Strength Camp as for men, ever. But you know who was there? Men. So it was, in a lot of ways, you know, it's not that I chose this. It's God chose it for me.
Right. So this is just the natural path you're on.
It's just I opened the doors, and that's who showed up. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. I'm the king of the boys. But what makes it even more important now is that I have 3 daughters. And so I look at it this way: I'm doing my part to raise my daughters in a way that would make them great wives. The world could use good wives and good husbands. And so as a result, I promote ideas to the men in my life that would make them good husbands to my wives, to my daughters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So I'm doing my part in my home, and I don't know what other people are doing with their daughters. I have no clue. But for the most part, it doesn't look very good. It's not working out so well. But then what do? I send my daughters out there to a bunch of slapdick guys who are addicted to pornography and video games? No, I got to talk to the guys now too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, you can see it from all the different angles.
You have to, dude.
Yeah.
You got to look at it from every angle.
Yeah, it's kind of a full circle approach to it.
Yeah, I make men strong again. Then as a result, there's something more for my daughters. even if it's just karma. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's nice. I'll ask you one more question here, and I'll let you go.
Sure.
What legacy do you want to leave the world when Elliott is no longer of it?
This is it, to make men strong again, and to what end? To repair the family, rebuild the family. That's what's going to make the biggest difference in our world. Whether people remember me for that or not, I know that those are the efforts. That's the aim that's the target I'm aiming for.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, well, I really want to thank you for coming on and giving me your time like this. It's an honor. It's just crazy to think about that you inspired me to start this YouTube channel. And now you're on it, which is pretty pretty surreal. So I just want to thank you for that.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I think you're a pretty cool dude. I appreciate you. I even appreciate the documentary that you made. I thought it was cool, to be completely honest. I guess your critiques are yours, and that's okay too. And I don't take any offense to any of it. And my dad watched it, and he called me. Yeah, my dad watched it. And it made my dad admire me more. And I was like, wow, that's great. Because you know what makes me happy is when my dad is proud. And so my dad watched it, and he said to me, he said, "You're a genius, son." I was like, oh, okay, cool. So Zach made me look good in front of my dad. I'll take it.
Right on. Yeah, I think I'm going to rename the title, actually.
Okay.
I don't think Rise and Fall is appropriate anymore. I mean, after I made the documentary, you hadn't made a YouTube video in half a year. So looking onto it, I'm like, okay, I guess he's done. So that's kind of why I had that vision. But I mean, you're still growing, your channels are going, and you're still working towards different directions. So
yeah, they're doing what they're doing. Yeah. I'm still here. I'm still alive.
Yeah. Okay, man. Thanks again. I'll let you go. We'll hopefully keep in touch at some point in the future.
Okay, buddy. Stay well.
All right. Have a good one. All right. That was awesome. Really glad that he was able to join me here. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider doing so. Go check out Elliott's channels. He's got his own personal one, and he's got Strength Camp. And if you want to become a member of this channel and support my creative endeavors, my YouTube journey, almost at 5K subs, feel free to join us. I'd love your support, and I'd love to have you with me on this journey. So thank you again, Elliott. Thank you to everybody watching. Stay tuned for the future. Klassen out.